Good morning, students. Let's start the next lecture where we are going to see what is project planning. In last lecture, we have seen the definition of project planning. What does actually the project planning means, and what is the need of a project planning? We have seen in the last lecture. We have seen what is the meaning of project planning, that project planning involves a series of steps that determines how to achieve a particular community or organizational goals or set of related goals. It means that project plan is a series of formal documents that defines the execution and control stage of a project. Okay, the particular plan that includes considerations for the risk management, resource management, and communications also, while addressing scope, cost, and schedule baselines related to that project. That is nothing but a project planning. We have seen need of a project planning. What is the actually need of a project planning? Project planning is a process at the starting of the project, means before starting exact execution of a project we are making different plannings related to the project. What is the need of that planning? Planning is nothing but outline of a project by which we can define step by step execution of a project. In that, what is the need of it? To think ahead and prepare for the future. If we plan particularly for the project, then we can think properly about the project and think ahead. Okay, and we can think about the future of the project. We can clarify goals and develop a vision related to project. These are nothing but the needs of a project. Now let's move to the next point, that is project planning. Why project planning is needed? Means, what are the advantages of project planning? By using the project planning we can eliminate poor planning. If we are having a poor planning, that can be eliminated by using a proper project planning. Okay, that is nothing but a need of a project planning. Project planning again helps for the unsustained project, eliminating unsustained projects, undefined problems. To eliminate the undefined problem that are not defined for the purpose of project, by particular planning we can eliminate that undefined problems also, and over ambitious projects also. Unstructured project work plan also can be eliminated by using a project planning. Project planning gives the exact idea about a project, means during what period during what period and what budget, how much steps we have to perform, and what is the need of that particular what will be the output of that particular step. That is nothing but that comes under a project planning. Now let's move to the next point, that is approach to a community development. What is actually community development by in the particular planning? Let us see, the community and its involvement are central to designing and implementing a successful project. Means the role of a community and the role of a community is a very important while designing and implementing a successful project. Many government and other funders seek to fund community-based projects that reflects the cultural values, collective visions, long-range governance, and social and economic development goals of a native communities. Here are some of the key points to consider during the project planning phase. Let us see what are the important points that we have to consider while planning a particular project. Local decision making in achieving community self sufficient is fundamental in success and positive growth in every community. Community involvement is very central to both the strategic planning and project planning also, that occurs before the development of any grant applications. In short, we can say that the government and other funders are mainly interested in funding the project that are very important for the community development. They are good for the development of a particular community, so that by using that approach we can have a proper planning regarding to that community development project. However, in addition to a detailed description of a community involvement in planning and implementation phase of a project, the proposals must provide the documentation to verify community involvement in and support for a proposed project. Okay, the documentation that should explain and provide the evidences of how the community was involved in determining the problems that were faced by its members and in designing the strategies for reducing and eliminating those problems. That is why documentation is also very important to show the community involvement in that particular project development. Okay, that's why we need documentation. We have to keep in mind that each of the documentation source that is listed, that we will list now, that provides the information about different elements of a planning process, means some of the documentation I will show you now, they are needed for the getting the information about different elements of planning process. That's why let's see some of the examples of a documentation. Each of the documentation sources listed below, they are summary of community comprehensive plan, then summary of community strategic plan. Whatever the comprehensive plan we have developed for the community, that summary is also needed, so that the funders or the government or the people they are investing in the particular project, they will be able to understand what is actually the role of a community in that particular project. Sorry. Summary of a community strategic plan is also necessary. Summary of results from a community that needs assessment. Tribal council of a board meeting minutes and or insign sheets. That this document is also very much needed. Means in the board meeting, insign sheets means whatever the things were discussed in that particular board, that the points are also very important to understand the community, the role of community in this particular development of a project. That's why documentation for that is also needed. Community meeting minutes and sign in sheets, so that the peoples that were involved or that were present in that particular meeting of a project, they will we will have a clear idea who the people were present and what are the views of the people, opinions of the people related to the development of that particular project. And community surveys also very needed. By the surveys of the community, we will understand what actually the project is going on, means where actually the project is leading, what are the things that we are doing for the project, and what are the things that are good for the community or not. By the different surveys, that will be understood in a good manner. That's why documentation is an important, very important part for the planning purpose. Okay, getting the idea about the documentation, why the documentation is needed in the community development for the project. We have seen the project planning. In that particular planning, documentation is very much needed for the purpose of development of a community. Now let us see the methods for involving a community in the project planning process. What are the different methods by which we can involve the communities in the project planning? There are different methods for that purpose. Let us see the first method, that is comprehensive planning. What is actually the comprehensive planning method that involves a community in the project planning? Let us see this first method, that is comprehensive planning. What is actually the comprehensive planning and how this method is needed, or how this method helps for a community to uh, be involved in a particular planning of a project. In the comprehensive planning, this process involves completing a community wide need assessment to engage the community in identifying and prioritizing all long range goals and the community problems preventing the achievement of these goals. Okay, means in this particular process, all the peoples in a community, they will be able to identify and prioritize all the long range goals of and different problems related to their particular community, and they will be able to prevent the achievements of the goal, that particular goal in the planning of a project. Next, we can say that the community is involved in the process of developing a method that to accomplish long range goals, also discussing initial ways to overcome the problems. Means in this particular phase or particular type of planning, that community will be involved for the purpose of developing different long term goals, and they will discuss the different ways to overcome the problem that can come in between the project plan, that come in between the execution of a project. That's why the community is a very important factor here. They will be able to discuss different problems they are having related to that project, and they will be able to overcome that problems, or they will be able to find the solutions for that particular problem. So, next we can say that this method should include a process to measure the progress towards achieving these goals. Comprehensive plans usually require at least a year to complete and cover a 5 to 10 years time span. Okay, in this particular requires at least 1 year to complete a cover 5. To complete a cover means for the purpose of completing an end line, for the purpose of completing particular planning in the particular project, it needs at least 1 year. And time span for the purpose of completing that project, means for the purpose of completing that planning of the project, it needs one at least 1 year, because different meetings of different people, community members, we have to follow, we have to consider to, we have to take the different meetings of different people of the community. We have to discuss different issues related to their community regarding the project. Then we have to find the different we have to find the how to overcome that if they are having some of the problems, we have to find the solutions over that problem. This is nothing but a very long process, so that for the purpose of planning of that particular project, we need at least 1 hour and 5 to 10 year time span for the purpose of completing that particular project. Because in between execution of a project, some of the problems may occur, some of the things may occur, that we have to make the solutions regarding to that. That's why a time span of 5 to 10 years is needed. Okay, getting what is actually the meaning of this particular comprehensive planning. This is one of the method for involving different community members or different proper communities in the planning of a process. Let's move towards the next type of planning, that is strategic planning. In this particular strategic planning, this is a process that is used when a community or organization already has a comprehensive plan and wants to move forward towards achieving its long range goals. Strategic planning involves the participation of a community in identifying the problems that stand between the community and its goals and move the community towards realizing its long range vision. Means here in this particular strategic planning, already the community is having different comprehensive plans and they want to achieve long term goals. Means in between the particular community, there are some of the problems that can occur between the community and achieving their goals. That's why we have to take the community took the forward they took them forward for the purpose of achieving the long range vision and achieving long range goals or long term goals regarding to that project. Getting this concept? Then the product of a strategic planning, often simply called the strategic plan, that builds on pre-established long range goals by designing projects that are related to one or more of these goals. A strategic plan that is generally takes at least a year to complete. It is exactly similar to the comprehensive planning type. In short, we can say about the strategic planning, that is the community increasingly adopt decision aided like strategic planning as a way to clarify their roles in local development. Many public administrators, they have integrated public participation into this planning process. Sustainability that we require local resources and strategic, so public participation seems a critical and essential. A case study that we have to do for approaching that explores links between local development activities and community strategic action plans. They laid several years earlier, and most importantly, we can say that it determines the role of public participation in the planning of a project. Okay, clear about both the planning processes, strategic planning and comprehensive planning. Here we can say that the involvement of a project, involvement of a community or different people of a community, public of a community in the planning is an important. How we can see that good public participation means involving the public at the beginning of a process. Okay, means before starting exactly execution of a project, in the planning process we are involving different peoples, different communities, different publics for the planning process. Before actually plans are drafted, we are involving them into that particular planning. That efforts may involve a process of multiple community meetings in multiple locations over a period of several months. The planning that scales of a activity will drive just how extensive the public engagement portions of effort that should be. City-wide plans usually involves more opportunities for public engagement than the sub-area plans that may cover a selected neighborhood or business corridors. So the site plans that that are and other local approvals that should seek to reach those most affected by the planning actions. This activity that should be more than a public hearing that is required by a stature, that it should be a genuine effort to involve and engage the public for the purpose of planning of a project. Next we can say that the process of capturing that particular public participation is very challenging, and it can be even more challenging when the professional staff regarding to that particular project, they will attempt to develop a community vision that is based on such input. However, we can say that the experience that has been proven that addressing community concerns early in the planning process, that will provide a greater opportunity for overall success than not having that input and dealing with the frustrated and all the citizens. Means we are having a very positive approach of the people into that particular planning of a project. That's why professional experience that is reinforced in this, and reality is that in a communities where I worked as a professional planner, the particular professionals will be able to make them very comfortable for the purpose of planning. Getting why it is very important for the community to involve in a planning of involving the community in planning of a project. Okay, for the purpose of getting a positive result of a greater community input, the discussion is that for those issues that are most important to those most affected by planning process, means here for the purpose of getting them involved properly and getting making that particular project very useful for that people or the community, we have to discuss different most affected planning processes. Also we have to involve the public, that is creates a greater opportunity for building and cooperation. And finally, it can be established strong community support and ongoing involvement for residents, so that the community involvement that can aid in a implementation process and give well conceived plans their best opportunity for implementation. Means for the purpose of their development, that particular community will give a good planning, they are giving us good plans for the good different plannings for the particular project. That's why involving them will give a very, very positive approach towards the successful project planning.